Hey guys, welcome to CPM 2. This is Module 1, Lesson 6. We are going over two sections, which is 2.4 and 2.5. We're going to be multiplying and dividing integers and then using those with order of operations. So, first objective in section 2.4, we got to multiply integers. It says multiplying and dividing integers is similar to multiplying and dividing whole numbers. One difference is that we need to determine whether the results is going to be a positive number or a negative number. So this is going to be your best friend right here, this little box here. It says multiplying numbers, the product of two numbers having the same sign is a positive number. So what is confusing about integer rules is adding and subtracting integer rules are completely different than your multiplying and dividing integer rules. When you are multiplying and dividing, if they have the same sign, so whether it's positive and positive or negative and negative, it does not matter. It's always going to come out to positive, right? And that's different than when you're adding or subtracting. So let's say you have two positive numbers. So you've got 2 plus 3, right? That is 5. But if I have two negatives, negative 2 plus a negative 3, that's going to be negative 5. So when you're adding two negative numbers, your answer is negative. But when I am multiplying two negative numbers, it is always going to be positive. Then over here, the product of two numbers having different signs is a negative number. So it doesn't matter if it's negative, then positive, or positive, then negative. It is always going to be negative. Okay, and that's again different when we're adding and subtracting. Let's say I have 3 plus a negative 2. That's going to be a positive one because my bigger number is positive. But if I have negative 3 plus a positive 2, then that is going to be negative 1 because my bigger number is negative. So when you're adding and subtracting, sometimes a positive and a negative or a negative and a positive is positive or negative. Okay, and I don't know if that's helpful or more confusing, to be honest with you. But you've got to just pay attention to if you have the same signs are positive, different signs are negative. I just kind of want to make sure you understand that multiplying and dividing have their own set of rules, just like addition and subtraction do. So on example 1, we're multiplying. So we got to figure out, okay, well first, 7 times 3 is 21. So now I've got to figure out if this is a positive 21 or a negative 21. So do I have like signs or do I have different signs? On this one I have different, right? You've got a negative 7 and a positive 3. So because of that, my answer is going to be negative. Okay, so on B, we got negative 5 times a negative 4. So 5 times 4 is 20. So now figure out, is it positive or negative? Do you have same signs or different signs? You have different, or you have same signs, so same signs are always positive. So my answer here is negative, or positive 20. 0 right here times anything, doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, that's going to be 0. And then on D, we've got 10 times a negative 8. So 10 times 8 is 80. And because you have one negative and one positive, those are different signs. Different signs are negative. So negative 80. Okay, so the only one on this one that was positive was my B because it had two negatives, had the same sign. Everything else that had different signs, this one and this one, turned out to be negative answers. So then from here, it says, recall from our study of exponents that 2 cubed is 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. We now work with bases that have negative numbers. So for example, negative 2 in parentheses cubed is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, and that is negative 8. Notice there are parentheses around -2 and -2 cubed. With parentheses, -2 is the base that is squared. Without parentheses, such as this one right here, -5 squared, only the 5 is being squared. So when you rewrite this, you've got negative on the outside and then 5 times 5. Basically, the only thing that's going to that base is what's right in front of it. To include that negative, it needs to have parentheses like you have parentheses here. So this helpful hint wants you to make sure that you understand the difference between parentheses with a negative and no parentheses with a negative. When you have -5 in parentheses, that negative is included in that base. So that's why it became -5 times -5. And now we know that like signs are always going to be positive. So -5 times -5 is a positive 25. When I have no parentheses, the only thing that is being squared is what's directly in front of it. So only that 7. So that negative stays on the outside, and now you've got just +7 times +7. Well, 7 times 7 is 49, but then that negative needs to tag on to it. So let's turn the page and use this. So evaluate. We've got -4 in parentheses squared. So because this -4 is in parentheses, what that means is you've got -4 times -4. Well, negative times negative is positive, right? You have the same signs. So 4 times 4 is 16. So that is my answer. Same signs as positive. Now B is different because I still have -4 squared, but it's not -4 in parentheses squared. So now the only thing that is being squared is right here that's in front of that squared. So my negative comes down. And now we've got 4 times 4. 4 times 4 right here is 16. And this negative just kind of continues to tag along. So my final answer on that one is -16. So that's how very different those parentheses make that number. Okay, on C, you've got -8 in parentheses squared. These parentheses include that negative. So now we have -8 times -8. Negative times negative is positive, and 8 times 8 is 64. So my answer is positive 64. And on D, you've got -3 squared, no parentheses, so it means the only thing being squared is that 3. So that negative comes down. 3 squared means you've got 3 times 3. 3 times 3 is 9. That negative comes down, so my answer is -9. So those parentheses really make a difference whether that number becomes positive or negative. So now objective B, we need to divide integers. Your rule for dividing is the exact same thing for multiplying. When you have like signs, whether that's positive over positive or negative over negative, your answer will be positive. So same signs is still positive. Different signs, so whether it's positive over negative or negative over positive, it does not matter. Your answer is negative. Same signs is positive, different signs is negative. So here, you got -12 divided by 6. That is this one right here, negative over positive, but it does not matter. You've got different signs, so that means it is negative, and 12 divided by 6 is 2. Okay, and it doesn't matter whether they give you this bar for division or the symbol for division, it's still the same thing. So -20 divided by -4, that's the same signs, so it's positive, and 20 divided by 4 is 5. C, you've got 70 divided by -10. That's this example right here, but again, it doesn't matter. You've got different signs. Different signs is negative. 70 divided by 10 is 7. So your answer is -7. And then D, we have the same sign, -11 over -1. So negative over negative is positive. And 11 divided by 1 is 11. Now, E and F, you've got to know the difference between these two. 0 on top, 0 divided by anything is 0. It doesn't matter that this 5 is negative. It doesn't matter if that 5 is positive. 0 divided by anything is 0. However, when you've got 0 on the bottom, this is always going to be undefined. And you just simply have to memorize this. Okay, so that's the difference. 0 on top, 0, 0 on bottom, undefined. Objective C, evaluate your algebraic expression. So substitute in your numbers. You've got x, y. When you have two numbers that are just side by side, no operation in between them, that is known to be multiplication. So that means I've got x times y. So my x is -2. My y is a +7. So opposite signs, you've got one negative, one positive. So that means my answer is going to be negative. And 2 times 7 is 14. On B, you have x over y. This little bar here means division. So my x is -24 divided by my y, which is -6. So on this one, we have the same signs. Negative over negative, so that means my answer is positive. And 24 divided by 6 is 4. So now on to section 2.5. Now we are using all of our integer rules. We're using our addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. We're using our exponent rules here, and also our order of operation rules within all of this. So this is basically a review of everything we have done in this module up until this point. Your order of operations is 1, perform any parentheses, brackets, or other groupings such as fraction bars. Evaluate any expression with exponents. Multiply or divide in order from left to right. Add or subtract in order from left to right. So this is our please, excuse, my dear, Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. Just remember this multiply and divide from left to right. This addition and subtraction, again, from left to right. And so then you have another helpful hint down here. It says when simplifying expressions with exponents, remember that parentheses make an important difference. This one and this one do not mean the same thing. -3 in parentheses squared and -3 squared are not the same thing. -3 in parentheses squared means -3 times -3, which is a +9. -3 without the parentheses squared means 3 times 3, which is 9, and then you got to tag that negative that's on the beginning onto it. Okay, so very different things, so we got to keep that in mind while we're going through this. So simplify. So I'm going to write my please, excuse, my dear Aunt Sally. So start with parentheses. Do we have any parentheses? Yes, we do. So here, notice that this squared is on the outside, so I'm not using that yet. We've got to just do this parenthesis, and this parenthesis. So 5 minus 9, think money. If you have $5 and you have to pay somebody $9, now you owe $4. So this is a -4. You can also do your keep, change, flip, right? If you have 5 minus 9, keep the first number, 5. Change the subtraction to addition. And then this +9 turns into a -9. So now that it's adding, you have different signs. So subtracting, keep the sign of the bigger. 9 minus 5 gives me 4. And my bigger sign is this 9, which is negative, so it's a -4. Okay, so either way you want to think about that, it's going to be -4. So we got -4, and then square that, divided by 4 minus 2 is 2 squared. So that's my parentheses. So now do we have exponents? Yes, we do. So -4 in parentheses squared means -4 times -4. -4 times -4 is 16. Okay, divided by 2 squared means 2 times 2, which is 4. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. Okay, B, same thing. We've got, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Do I have any parentheses? Yes, I do. So parentheses here. Notice that, yes, this is parentheses, but I have no operation to do in those parentheses. It's just -5. So that's not really considered parentheses. So 5 minus 3. Dang it. 5 minus 2 is 3. And now drop down everything else. I'm going to drop down this 5 plus, in parentheses, -5 squared. Don't lose those parentheses. Minus 6. So parentheses are done. Do I have any exponents? Yes, I do. I've got this -5 squared. So -5 in parentheses squared means -5 times -5. Negative times negative is positive. So this becomes 25. So drop down everything else. We got a -6 plus 3 and a 5. So exponents are done. So now multiply and divide. The only thing I have to multiply or divide is this one right here. So 5 times 3 is 15. Drop down everything else. So now add and subtract, and we're doing this from left to right. So it just so happens that the addition comes first going in this direction, but it doesn't always mean to add. So keep that in mind. So 15 plus 25 is 40, and 40 minus 6 is going to give me 34. C, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, yes, we have some parentheses. 36 divided by 6, those are different numbers or opposite signs. So opposite signs mean negative, and 36 divided by 6 is 6. Minus 4 divided by 4 is 1. So parentheses are done. Now we have one operation left, so either subtract. If you owe me $6, and now you owe me, and now you borrow another dollar minus 1, now you owe me -$7. Okay, think money. -6 minus 1. You owe me 6. You borrow another one. Now you owe me -7. Or do your keep, change, flip. Keep the first number of -6. Change your subtraction to addition. And flip the number of the second one. So this +1 becomes -1. So now when I add, we have the same sign, so we add and keep the sign. So -6 plus a -1 is -7. Okay, and then lastly on D, I'm going to change colors because B came down really far. So we've got please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We have some parentheses. So notice that square's on the outside, so I'm not doing 10 squared. This squared's on the outside. I'm not doing 6 squared. I'm dealing with only what's in parentheses first. What's in parentheses is 8 minus 10. So that's a negative 2. Minus 5 times 1 minus 6 is a negative 5 squared. Okay, think money. You have $8, you spend 10, now you owe somebody 2. You have $1, you spend 6, you owe somebody 5. So parentheses are done. So exponents, you got 2 exponents. Negative 2 in parentheses squared means negative 2 times negative 2, so that's a positive 4. Negative times negative is positive. I'm going to bring down my 2 from the beginning, my minus 5. And then this is negative 5 times negative 5. Negative times negative is positive. 5 times 5 is 25. So now we're done with exponents. So now multiply and divide. So 2 times 4 is 8. 8 minus 5 times 25 is 125. Think quarters. Or we can multiply. 25 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. So that 5 comes down. And you carry the 2. So then 2 times 5 is 10 plus the 2 that we had to carry. So that'd be 12. So now we've got 8 minus 125. So either subtract or change this to addition. So keep the first number, 8. Change this addition, change the subtraction to addition. And flip this sign. Positive 125 turns into a negative 125. So now we have opposite signs. Opposite signs mean to subtract. So I've got 125 minus 8. So subtract this way first. We can't do 5 minus 8. So that means we need to borrow from this 2. So this 2 is going to become a 1. And now 5 becomes a 15. So 15 minus 8 is 7. And now we have nothing else left there. So that just becomes a 1, an 11. So we subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. The bigger number is this 125. So my final answer here is a negative 117. All right, example 6, we're evaluating. Evaluate means to get to one single answer. So we're evaluating x squared and negative x squared. Okay, so when I'm evaluating an x squared, okay, I'm going to go ahead and just write x squared. Means I am replacing x with this negative 11. So we've got here's where my x goes. My x is that negative 11. So I've got negative 11 squared. That means negative 11 times negative 11. Negative times negative is positive, and 11 times 11 is 121. Okay, so that's one answer. So now, my next one is this negative x squared. So, when I have negative x squared, I am replacing something only where that x is. So I have negative something on the outside, and then squared. Well, what is my x? My x is still that negative 11. Okay, so this negative on the outside comes down. You've got negative 11 in parentheses squared. So negative 11 times negative 11. So negative 11 times negative 11. Negative times negative is positive. 11 times 11 is 121. But then this negative that we had to bring down from the outside needs to still tag along with this. So my answer on that one is a negative 121. Now B, we're evaluating 6z squared for both z equals 2 and z equals negative 2. So on this one, we only have one thing to plug in, but I'm going to plug in two different numbers. On A, we had two things to plug in, but only one number for x. So on the first one, when z is 2, I've got 6 times z squared. My z is 2, so it goes in here. So that means we've got exponents first, right? If we use my please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. We don't have any parentheses, but we do have some exponents. So 2 squared is the same as 2 times 2, which is 4. Bring down that 6. And 6 times 4 is 24. Now we need to also put in when z is a negative 2. So we've got 6 times z squared, and this one, now my z is negative 2. So negative 2 in parentheses squared is negative 2 times negative 2. Negative times negative is positive, and 2 times 2 is 4. Bring down that 6, and 6 times 4 is 24. So on this one, whether z was 2 or negative 2, you still got the exact same answer. All right, and I believe the last thing for this lesson, nope, two more things. We need to find the average of numbers, and then we need to find area and perimeter. So first, we're going to find the average of a list of numbers. All right, my formula for average is the sum of the numbers on the top divided by the number of numbers that we have. So, for example, in this one, let's add all of these up together. So, we've got negative 40 plus a negative 20 plus a negative 10 plus negative 15 plus negative 5. So this one's a pretty easy one because these are all the exact same number. Or they're not all the same number, but they're all the same sign, right? They're all negative. So we're going to add and keep the sign. So 40 plus 20 is 60, plus 10 is 70, plus 15 is 85, plus 5 is 90. Okay, so now that I've added these, we've got negative 90 on the top. That is my sum of the numbers. We added these all up to get that negative 90. So now I have to divide this by the number of numbers that we have. We have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm dividing this by 5. So over here we've got, let's bring this down a little bit. We've got 5 divided by 90. 5 goes into 9 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. Subtract. We get 4. Bring down your 0. 5 goes into 40 9 times. So my answer here is 19. But follow your integer rules because we have opposite signs or different signs. You got negative on the top, positive on the bottom. This is a negative 19. Okay, so add up all of your numbers and then just divide it by the number of numbers that you have. Okay. Do the same thing for B and example 7. You're going to add up negative 18 plus a negative 8 plus a negative 1 plus a negative 1 plus 0 plus 4. And then that would all be over the number of numbers that you have. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This 0 counts as a number, 5, and then 6. So you divide that all by 6. Okay, this video is starting to get a little bit long, so I'm not going to do B, but 7 would be the exact same thing. You would do 17 plus negative 1 plus negative 11 plus negative 13 plus negative 16 plus negative 13 plus 2 plus 21. That would be all in the top. And then you would divide it by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on the bottom. Okay, but just because this video is starting to get really long, I'm going to skip B in example 7, but it's the exact same way we did example 6A. And then lastly, area and perimeter. It says, recall that the perimeter of a figure is the distance around the figure. Therefore, to find perimeter, find the length of the size. We use P to represent the perimeter. If you're thinking in like terms of like your backyard, this is your fence. That's what perimeter represents. It's the outside distance around. So then, and we've done perimeter before, what's new is this area. Area of a figure is the number of unit squares that can be contained within it. The unit square is usually some standard unit like square meter, square foot, or square inch. If we're going back to my backyard, area is representing the grass. It's everything in between the perimeter. And notice that it says unit squared. That is like if you take, and I'm going to take a different one because I don't want to go 8 and 7. This is like if I have a rectangle that is 2 by 3. That means you have 2 units going one way, 3 units going another way. How many squares do you have? You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so that's why this area here is 6 square units. It's how many squares you can fit into this rectangle. And so another way to do this, and this is a formula you're going to have to memorize, is length times width. So if I use that same square, my length is 3, my width is 2, so 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, so that's what the formula is doing, but that's what it means by unit squares, is how many squares you can fit into a 3 by 2. Let's back way up, get rid of this. So example 8 tells us to find the area and perimeter of the rectangle shown. So if I find area first, it says area first. Area is length times width. So my length, and it does not really matter which one you call your length or your width. Length is usually longer, so I'm going to call length my L times my width of 7. So 8 times 7 is 56. This is meters. So meters squared. Okay, and you can also do, if you want to, you could have said area is 56 square meters, but m squared represents meters, it represents that square meters. So now when I find perimeter, you're just adding up the outside lengths. You've got 8 and 7, and then you have to add, this is another 8 meters over here, plus another 7 meters over here. So 8 plus 7 is 15. 8 plus 7 is 15. And 15 plus 15 is 30. Now when you find perimeter, it is just the unit, since we're not talking about squares anymore. So perimeter is just 30 meters. Okay, and that's kind of what these little boxes up here are telling you about. Your area is measured in square units. Your perimeter is measured in just straight units. B is the same thing. Area is length times width. So my length is 70 times my width of 14. So 70 times 14. 0 times 4 is 0. 7 times 4 is 28. Okay, skip a space. 1 times 0 is 0. 7 times 1 is 7. And now add. We've got 0, 8, and 9. So my area here is 980. We're in feet. And we're talking about squares. So feet squared. Perimeter, add them all up. You've got 14 plus 70 plus this side is 14 plus this side here would be 70. So add 14 plus 70 is 84. 14 plus 70 is 84. And 84 plus 84 is 168. And my units is just feet. And it's perimeter, so it's not squared. All right, that's all I have for this lesson. Let me know if you have any questions.